I'm Lewis, and I'm 21 years old.
Hi, Louise. How are you feeling just right now, right here?
I'm excited for this. I like the idea of sharing and of sort of being surprised by the questions. And um, yeah, that's, I think, a source of excitement for me.
That's the reason why you accepted to answer my questions.
Yeah, I think it is. It's something exciting. Yeah.
Where are we? In which town? Which state?
We're in Johnston, Iowa, and Polk County, Iowa.
This is where you live?
I live near here in another city called Ankeny, Iowa, about 10 minutes away.
So, Louise, who are you?
Who am I? Yeah. Um, hmm. I think one way to answer that is to say the identities that I hold. And some of those are I am a straight white Christian cisgendered male. Another way to answer that might be to answer who I love. And I would say, I think probably my family. I have two older brothers and two parents that are in the area that we're really close. Um, there are a handful of communities that I really love and feel loved by. And I think I answer that partly because the people I'm around, I am slowly discovering sort of shape into who I am.
Mhm.
You know, I am a person that really thrives and enjoys experiencing life. The fear of missing out is very real for me. I really think I enjoy people a lot. Like I'm extrovert on the on the Myers Briggs, and um, feel really sort of filled up by the presence of people. I really like sort of adventures and doing new things, and doing new and interesting things, and which like draws me to traveling, draws me to meeting new folks in whatever ways I can. Um, yeah, I would say that's at least the start of who I
Mhm.
am.
What is your story?
mm, yeah, I I think chronologically my story is, and I know that there are more ways to tell stories than chronologically, but I think that's probably where it makes sense to start. I grew up um, in Iowa for the most part, with 2 years I spent in England. Actually, lived first and second grade in England, and um, I think enjoyed. I probably didn't really process this till way after the fact, but enjoyed the act of being a stranger. Enjoyed the act of sort of being the new kid for several years in a row, both there and then when we came back. And partly, I think, really liked having that identity of uniqueness, having that identity um, of being able to sort of have at least a little bit of influence and sort of ambiguity in my identity. And I grew up um, in sort of a medium-sized town of Iowa. My graduating class was about 300 people. In high school, I got really connected in leading an on-campus student-led ministry. And through that ministry and through some people there that I was connected to, um, I really started discerning my call to vocational ministry, to thinking about very critically what the church could be in the future, and then acting to build that in the here and now. And so I think that really kind of led me to my college experience, and that was pretty transformative and still is. I'm finishing up college on my last semester. I think that was a place where I really am just beginning to start to notice the ways that the communities that I've been a part of have shaped me. Um, yeah. And so I find myself now as someone who's sort of deeply connected to the church and trying to critically listen to the needs of those around us that are, struggling and hurting from a variety of ways, and feeling called to sort of compassion for people once again. And that's at least, I guess, at least the short answer.
What brings you joy?
What brings me joy? I think nature has been an area that I've felt the emotion of joy many times. I even think about most recently, I just got back from a hiking trip that I think either a mix of joy or wonder is maybe another word that I would use when I think about like being out in these sort of places of beauty in nature. I also just get a lot of joy, I think, um, from people sort of the moment of seeing when people find the area that they belong in. Um, Witnessing someone sort of noticing and naming for themselves um, that moment of like, this community feels right. Um, and I think that's kind of, that joy is sort of why I care so much about communities and care so much about creating sort of that culture of welcome. Um, yeah, that gives me joy.
What is your biggest fear?
Mm. I think in some extreme measure of this word, the fear of missing out, um, and not just on specific experiences, but this fear of like, what if, what if I no longer have the ability to like create change? Um, that seems scary, and I think, a lot of people are scared of death for a variety of reasons, and I think obviously I am as well, but um, I think one of the reasons that death scares me quite a bit is because it means there's sort of, at least in this physical bodily form, um, less of an opportunity to sort of create change in the world around us. And um, yeah, I've felt really blessed to have sort of some agency in a variety of ways. And I think losing that sort of ability to care for people and love people would be my biggest fear.
What are you proud of?
Mm-hmm. Hmm. I think I've been proud of just the ways that like when people feel really cared for because of things that I've done. Like I have, you know, won some awards and things, but when you said like, what are you proud of? My mind didn't really go there. Actually, it went to like uh, the stories that I remember of like, um, yeah, of people feeling really cared for because of things that I've done, and um, yeah, I think I feel proud of sort of the moments that um, I got to show up for people.
Do you feel anger sometimes?
Yeah, um, I think I struggle with the emotion of anger. Partly, I I think some self discovery of myself has sort of made me realize that I struggle hard with negative emotions. Like I flee from anger. I think I flee from sort of like despair or grief. I don't, and it's not that it's that I'll just distract myself. Something had happened recently that I was upset about, and a friend checked in and said, "How are you doing with that?" And I said, "Great. I have 3 new hobbies, you know, and I've already distracted myself. I've already gotten myself past this, and um, I do experience the emotion of anger, and I think I don't know what to do with it, really." Um, and there's some level of like sort of experiencing emotion, you know, and saying it's not good or bad. And intellectually, I think I'm there. I just don't think emotionally um, I hold that, you know, very well, and am willing to sort of sit in the midst of that without trying to find immediately, you know, some way to some sort of coping mechanism or some sort of, you know, thing. Even, you know, healthy ways of coping is just like I struggle with sitting in the midst of anger.
Do you believe in something?
Mm. Yeah, I believe in something. Is the question what? Yeah, I mean, I'm a Christian, and I really do believe that Jesus came. I really do believe that Jesus is the Son of God. I do believe there is a God. I do believe, sort of in the very traditional sense of the Trinity, the Godhead three in one. But I also think I believe that it's sort of our responsibility now to be the hands and feet of God. It's sort of our responsibility to um, love our neighbors and reach out in compassion and hope in a world that can sometimes feel hopeless. And um, yeah, so I think I believe um, that whether we do it well or not, that's sort of our vocation as people, is to enact sort of to be the extensions of the deity in our midst, you know, um, and to tap into very seriously the fact that we're united as people, you know, and we're not sort of a bunch of random accidents floating around. It's that there was, I think, intelligent design behind us and behind our world, and that's some of the things that I believe in.
Will you vote in 2020?
I will, yes. Yeah, I think I'm. You mentioned this is kind of jumping back to another question, but it'll answer, I think, both. Um, you'd mentioned anger, and I think a big source of anger for me right now is the way we're treating our environment, and starting to really kind of work out some lament that you know, we like some climatologists say that we have 11 years, right? And to make a difference. And I don't know, like I'm 21 and I'll be, sort of 32 by that estimate. By the time it's like almost too late, and voting's great, and I'm going to vote, and that's a way to voice that. But I think for me, it's a matter more than voting, of learning to share my voice with the communities that I'm a part of and have influence over, but also learning what it means to be sort of politically active beyond the voting booth. And so most tangibly, that's sort of been expressions of various political action that I've started being involved in. And I think a lot of that's been centered around this sort of despair over the way I would frame it is like the way we're treating God's creation. Yeah, so I think when you asked like, are you going to vote? My mind went to like, yeah, but I think I'm being called to more than that, and still kind of figuring that out.
So what is the truth?
I don't know if I would be so bold as to claim that. I think in some ways we sort of put all of our eggs in one basket and hope for the best, when it comes down to it, like, I don't know if I can confidently say I know absolute truth, and it's this thing, and actually mean that. I think in sort of discerning that or figuring that out, I think it's so important for me to get beyond my head, to ask other folks what their life experience is. Just because I have a limited lens, right? Like, and in some ways, the traditional language we would use holds a lot of privilege, right? Like in a variety of demographics, and not all, but certainly many. And so I think in sort of discerning that truth, it's really important for me and anybody to take seriously the life experience of others, to take seriously the sort of history, that people have been discovering. It's, I don't have to make up the wheel. I can turn to many other life experiences. I think most notably where I have turned is a lot of life experience that's evident in the Christian Bible, and that's where I end up sort of mentally going back to, and that's not the only thing necessarily that sort of determines absolute truth for me, but I think that's definitely a narrative of people being in a relationship with God, and that life experience is valuable. It's a valuable record of experience.
So what is your truth?
What is my truth? Yeah, I think my truth is that I have, like anybody else, a limited amount of time to sort of make change resolute or make change complete in the world, and so that draws me to sort of consider what truth is. And I think for me, I've been at least personally convicted that in sort of the Christian doctrine and teaching, and I found that to be true for me. And yeah, so I think for me, part of that truth is um, continuing to explore and continuing to question, to sort of cherish um, the value of curiosity, and be slow to sort of claim things as truth universally, or really for myself, but to really question deeply, and get curious.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to add before we finish the interview?
Um, I don't think so.
No. A thought, a wish, an intention?
Yeah. Um, yeah. I think a curiosity, to see the other interviews and to sort of be able to hear other people's stories. That's a really sacred thing, and um, I I appreciate how you're sort of holding space for this, and not only for me but for many more, before and after. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Louis, for your time and your trust.
Yeah.